Welcome, everybody, to the Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi podcast. I am your main host, the Artificial Dragon.
I'm your co-host, Hannah, otherwise known as Darth Celine.
Yep, and welcome to another episode of the podcast, everybody. We had it's a little bit delayed, because I had to do real-life things. I had to take our little mayonnaise droid to the vet to see, personal matters. Had him in for a little checkup, but he's doing fine. He's just a little bit old, that sort of thing.
That's okay.
But yeah,
We still love him.
Yeah. This episode has been a little bit delayed. It'll still be uploaded Thursday like every other episode previous. But
At least we're not on a time crunch this time.
At least. But yeah, same thing as usual. Go if you love the content that we make. Be sure to support us on our Patreon at patreon.com/canmayo. Once again, it's patreon.com/canmayo.
Support my blog.
Yeah, your blog too. And for this month's Patreon art pieces, we got the power couple, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Duchess Satine of Mandalore.
Yep. Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
Most beautiful artwork we've had.
Yeah, the most beautiful artwork we've ever had. And aside from that, if you're not into the fan service stuff, you could always support our other tiers, the lowest being $3, the next being $5, and whatever tier you contribute to, you always have instant bring up topic suggestions or just have a general fun time with us.
And get to know us.
Yeah, and share your collection and history with the Star Wars franchise in general.
Oh, hell yeah. It's awesome to learn about everybody's past with this series.
Yeah, or if you're a certain somebody, you'll be sharing some fan theories here and there.
Oh, yeah. But that's what fandom is all about.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if you're not interested in donating any money or anything like that, you could always subscribe, comment, give a like for our videos.
Ring the bell.
Yeah, ring the bell. Sounding like every other generic YouTuber ever, but yeah.
Hey, it's how it works.
Yeah, it just helps out with the algorithm. But yeah, we appreciate your support for loving the content that we do, and we hope to do more in the foreseeable future.
Shout out to my dad for actually listening.
Shout out to Hannah's dad, which is always nice to have loved ones listen and all that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, aside from that and your little blog over there, don't worry, I'll put it in the description down below. Let us get into the episode. So Hannah, I'm sure you know what today's episode's going to be about.
We're going to be talking about hyperspace.
Yep, if nothing too special. We're not talking about a specific character. We're not talking about a race, a planet, a battle, or the history of a Sith or the Jedi, anything like that.
We're just talking about like one of the miscellaneous things.
Yeah, pretty much. So hyperspace, it's kind of like one of those things. It's the main method of travel throughout the Star Wars galaxy. It's basically something like, okay, faster than light travel, the generic sci-fi stuff. Like for Star Trek, we have warp drives and everything like that. And for 40K, we have the warp, which is literally just going through hell, literal hell, to get onto whatever destination you need to go to. And I'm not too familiar with others' methods of travel for other sci-fi universes, but it's the general faster than light travel.
Yeah.
But for other franchises, it's just going into cryo sleep, whatever.
It makes sense from a scientific standpoint.
Yeah, because I don't think we'll be able to achieve faster than light travel anytime soon.
Before we die, at least.
At least in our lifetime, no. But yeah, so hyperspace is kind of like one of those concepts that you don't generally think about. You just think, oh, it's faster than light travel.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's just there. Of course, like with any deep sci-fi franchise, there is a good amount of lore behind hyperspace and everything like that.
Of course there is.
To be honest, I won't be going too much into depth. I say that, and we're going to go so much into depth.
Look, this is going to be an hour.
But yeah, it'll be a little bit shorter than normal episode. I say that, and it'll probably be over an hour, but who the fuck knows? But yeah, so let me go ahead and get started. So hyperspace, as we all know, it's basically like faster than light travel, that classic sound effect where all the ships go into the horizon and all the stars.
Disappear.
Yeah. and all the stars just dilate and just, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The legendary Us, it's always so good. Hyperspace ambiance is the best sounding thing out
It's
there.
very nice to listen
It's
to.
oddly relaxing if you ever come across those ASMR videos on YouTube.
I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, sometimes I use them as background noises whenever I do a D&D campaign.
I think I've noticed.
But yeah, hyperspace, it's described as an alternate state of existence, or an alternate dimension if you want to go that far.
Okay. So kind of like the warp,
Kind of like the warp, yeah.
but not hell.
Not literal hell, no. While it can be described as an alternate dimension, it kind of has the same boundaries as real space and everything like that.
Okay.
There's just like a shadow. Like I came to the conclusion that hyperspace is kind of akin to the ocean.
I can see the comparison.
Like, so when you're in hyperspace, it's not like you're in an alternate state of existence where you just bypass everything. Mm-hmm. It's more of a alternate state of mind. Like, imagine like Doctor Strange when he's going into his, what was it called? His ethereal state or something like that.
Okay.
So imagine it like that, but with ships and everything.
So, like, it's the astral plane.
Yes, it's kind of like the astral plane, so to speak.
But everything is still there.
Yeah.
That's how... It's weird to list... I want to hear how hyperdrives work.
Yeah. I haven't gone into hyperdrives this episode, spoiler alert, but we'll eventually talk about hyperdrives, but they are so deep. Like, the literal fuel that they use for hyperdrives are called hypermatter, sorry.
Hypermatter.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, like in the Han Solo movie, the entire plot point behind that is to get coaxium.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Just barely. That's
Just
the only
barely.
thing I fucking remember aside from Maul.
Yeah, but we'll eventually talk about hyperdrives, but we're talking about hyperspace.
Quick side note about Solo. That's the only Star Wars movie that I did not like watching.
Yeah.
Because it gave me such a headache.
I thought you didn't like Rise of Skywalker, though.
Rise of Skywalker is different. This is the only Star Wars movie that has made me physically hurt because it made my eyes hurt.
Fair enough. Maybe we'll do a rewatch of Solo one of these days.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Just kind of a little revisit. I think it would be nice. But anyway, where was I? So think of like I'll go into mass shadows later, but imagine like you're in hyperspace. Like all the stars are super dilated around you, but you're approaching a certain point and you just see a shadow. That shadow is basically the literal shadow of like a planet or something, and you're about to collide with that shadow. You do not want that.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Yeah, so basically there's a unique point that's also connected to hyperspace. But anyway, I'll get more into that later. But point is, hyperspace is the literal backbone of the Star Wars universe. Like everything from traveling to another planet on the other side of the galaxy, or going into battle, or, getting a certain resource on that valuable planet over there. Politics, that sort of thing. Space travel, all that.
Or if you're going from the sequels, literally busting into a ship.
Oh, yeah. We'll eventually talk about that hyperspace ramming thing in
Which
a little
fucking
bit.
makes zero sense.
Yeah, kind of a little bit interesting on that point, but I'll get there when I get there. But yeah, without hyperspace, the Star Wars galaxy would essentially be fucked.
Yeah.
Like, cutting off all hyperspace, not having access to hyperspace technology, you would be literally stranded on the planet that you're on.
Yeah, no trade would happen. Everything
No
would
trade.
just be fucked.
Yeah, and all the alien civilizations that have gone together would be just isolated.
And cut off from everything.
Yeah, and like there are certain worlds that serve certain purposes, like maybe you have an agricultural planet that gives you food, or an energy world that gives you a certain amount of energy, or just general mining worlds.
Yeah, you gotta get your resources from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people like to meme that certain planets in the Star Wars galaxy are not self-sustaining. But yeah, like if you look at our real world, especially with America, it has a lot of exports that it depends on other countries and everything. Like, look at fucking China. We get a majority of our shit from them.
Yes, and we get oil from the Middle East.
Yeah, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, and all
Yep.
that. Like, if those
If we
two,
didn't have access to those, we'd be fucked.
yeah, we're not exactly self-sustaining as much as we like to believe we are.
Nope.
Same thing with the Star Wars galaxy, just on a much more planetary-wide scale.
Yeah, it's such a bigger scale. It's
Yeah.
a whole galaxy,
Yeah.
not just one country.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, let me get a little bit into the history of hyperspace.
Okay.
So, the principles of hyperspace travel, as the Star Wars galaxy knows it, was first discovered by our good old buddies, the ancient Rakata.
Of course.
Yeah, because, for being evil bastards, they are the tipping point of everything that we know about the Star Wars galaxy.
Yep.
Which allowed them to create one of the first galaxy-spanning empires. Though there have been examples of ancient relics that have utilized hyperspace in much more different applications. Like there's the Gree Hypergates, which is literally like a large halo. I don't have pictures of it, unfortunately.
Okay.
But it's like a gigantic portal halo thing that utilizes hyperspace, and you just walk in it and go to a completely different section of the galaxy.
Is this like for one person or an entire...
I assume it would be like for ships, entire groups of people, something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. The Gree are really interesting. I'm not sure if you've encountered them in the Old Republic
have,
yet.
but I barely know anything about them.
Fair enough. We'll eventually talk about them in the future.
I think
Take a
they're
shot.
mostly included in like flashpoints and like the Rakghoul stuff.
Yep.
Which I really don't pay attention to because I like solo play, not PvE play.
Fair enough, but I do like that certain flashpoints expand more lore about the Star Wars galaxy and
A
everything.
little bit. It's cool.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll talk about the Gree in some other episode. Take a shot.
Yep.
But anyway, so eventually the technology would be reverse engineered by other races that the Rakata used to enslave, like the Corellians and the Duros.
Yes, the Rakata enslaved everybody.
Yep, pretty much.
They thought they were basically the Chiss, but less kind.
Less
were
kind and
brutal
more
as fuck.
more dictatorship.
Yes.
Yeah. Though there have been examples of other races creating the hyperdrive independently, such as the Deveronians, the devil people and everything. In canon, there have been stories of numerous races taking inspiration from a spacefaring animal race called the Purgil, which are like the space whales and everything.
So space whales can travel through hyperspace?
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like there's an episode, I think it's the first episode of season 3 of A Mandalorian, where Grogu and Din Djarin are in hyperspace and Din Djarin's just falling asleep, and Grogu is like looking in the the ethereal realm of hyperspace, and just right next to them is just an entire pod of Purgil.
I gotta look that up now.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful scene. But point is, just like our own real world, in canon anyway, the people of the Star Wars galaxy were inspired by these space version of whales, basically.
They look more like giant squids.
A little bit, mostly because of the tentacles in the back, but they're basically space whales.
I can see.
Yeah.
It was like combining a whale and a squid.
Yeah. I remember when a lot of people noticed the Purgil, and they were like, that's so ridiculous. I'm like, dude, have you forgotten about the Minox and the gigantic worms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't be sci-fi without weird fucking creatures.
Yeah, exactly. Especially those that could survive in the vacuum of space.
Yup.
I mean, look at the diaphragm. They casually fly around in the vacuum of space.
And they're technically canon.
Yeah, exactly. Though the use of hyperspace has become commonplace in a grand majority of the galaxy and everything, how it works remained a huge mystery, even to the best of astrophysicists and astronavigator experts. Though it's kind of like that idea, like we know more about our moon than our own oceans.
Yes, I've said that so many times.
Yeah, which is, yeah, like even us and even the citizens of the galaxy don't know what the hell hyperspace is. or what its original purpose. For all we know, it's always been there.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple of interesting theories. One stating that hyperspace utilized another dimension as a sidestep to the light of the speed limit. Like, imagine, like, real space is the road, and you're in the middle of a traffic jam. Like, that situation where you're, like, telling people to move and everything. And you just think to yourself, God,
Basically,
it would be...
I-17?
Yeah, it would be... And you think to yourself, God, it would be a lot easier to just walk on foot.
Yeah.
Imagine hyperspace being the sidewalk to that road.
Or more like driving on the fucking shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. That's one theory, at least. Another is that it is phased matter directly into another universe, similar to Other Space, which we talked about briefly in our Ghost Stories episode and everything.
See that episode, it needs more views.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Please see that. But anyway, so regardless of, theories and everything, hyperspace has been a critical part of everyday life of Star Wars. Like,
yeah, we see it everywhere.
Essentially, like, you're never going to watch Star Wars without going into hyperspace or anything like that. It's just...
nothing would happen.
Yeah, exactly. Thus, in the early days of a republic, hyperspace coordinates were plotted within the aid of hyperspace beacons. Because you gotta keep in mind, in the early days of a republic, a majority of the galaxy was just unexplored.
Yeah, you had to have a way to know where you were going.
Yeah, basically. And the further people traveled into the galaxy, they just, set out beacons, like basically lighthouses in space and everything, to make sure that they don't
get lost.
Don't get lost and just keep traveling out, like going into the new frontier and everything. But as time went by, those hyperspace beacons would be replaced gradually, and each ship would be installed with Navi computers, which allowed for more autonomous travel for everyday spacers of Star Wars and everything.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, Navi computers are basically like GPS, but in space.
Yes, I know. You encounter one every single time you need to go to a new planet in SWTOR.
Yeah, exactly. And then, though, at around the time of the Mandalorian Wars, okay, so... I already talked about that already. That's when Navi computers were installed in every ship in the galaxy. It's around the Mandalorian Wars. When the Mandalorians were curved something for Republic here and there.
Still very ancient in Star Wars time.
Very ancient. So let me go ahead and talk about I wouldn't say mechanics because I think we kind of understand them, but a little bit of explaining of how hyperspace works and everything.
Okay.
Each ship that enters hyperspace can only do so with a hyperdrive. Very obvious.
Yes.
And has to go through a fixed routine process. These calculations can be done with a Navi computer, as I explained earlier, or with smaller ships like a starfighter or something through an astromech droid. They are basically mini Navi computers and everything.
That's cool.
So yeah, like we'll eventually talk about
no
astromechs.
wonder R2 is so useful.
Yeah, because he's literally a navigator, your engineer, and your companion wrapped into one.
Yep.
But anyway, though, as with space in general, it is constantly changing, with numerous celestial bodies finding themselves from one point and, moving to a completely different point.
Yeah, orbits.
Yeah, pretty much. So...
I mean, even stars and planets spin around the center point of a galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes sense.
So it's always constantly changing. So yeah, this is where, so I always throw around hyperspace lanes, which are basically, as I say numerous times, they're basically highways in space.
Yeah.
So since the beginning of a republic, like, there are thousands of hyperspace lanes, but yeah, they always need to be constantly updated because, there could be a random asteroid there. There could be a black hole that came out of fucking nowhere, that sort of thing.
Basically, it's the highways, and then needing to upkeep it is ADOT or, Department of Transportation fucking keeping up the road.
But yeah, like, The common misconception that I always find with a lot of fans of Star Wars is that you could only travel to certain planets that are along a hyperspace lane or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's not quite true, because like with highways and residential roads and everything like that, you could deviate from the normal route. It's just going to be a little bit trickier. I think I remember one fan from a Discord server describing it like this. Imagine you're on a Jeep Wrangler, cross-roading and everything like that.
Yeah, off-roading.
Off-roading. And your windows are just polarized. You can't see shit out of it. And you're just depending purely on the map right next to you.
Okay.
And if you keep on going and you don't know where the fuck you are, eventually you will run into something and disaster will happen.
Yeah.
That's basically what hyperspace is like.
It makes me think, like, you know how the traffic has been bad going down?
Oh, yeah.
There's an alternate route that we usually take, but it's so, like, low maintenance. And it's an old country road. It's called the Old Munns Highway. And it goes from Flagstaff at the airport to Kachina Village.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to, pass all that shit. Mm-hmm. But it's bumpy as hell.
Yep.
So, same real-life comparison.
Yeah, pretty much. And another thing to point out is that when you're in hyperspace, it's not like you're going into hyperspace the entire trip to whatever destination you want to go to. You will eventually have to come out of hyperspace and into real space because there's like a planet in your way, or there's a space station in your way, and you don't want to hit it. Yeah, you don't want to hit it. Or like there's like an episode of the Clone Wars where so it's the Malevolence arc. And point is, the Malevolence is going to fuck up a medical facility, but it has to navigate around a nebula. It can't exactly go through the nebula. Mm-hmm. So it has to make like several stopping points because it's obviously a wide turn, and you can't do that in hyperspace.
Yeah, makes sense, especially with a big ass ship.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, like contrary to what one of my players thought at the time, you can't exactly go through asteroids or a nebula or anything like that.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
It's like you're gonna hit it. You're not phasing through it. You're going to hit it.
No, yeah, you are absolutely going to hit it. But yeah, so there are like 5 main hyperspace routes. Let me see. Do I have them written down? Yes, I do actually. Like I said before, there are minor hyperspace lanes. But there are like the 5 main ones. Mm-hmm. They're like the Route 66 or I-90 of Star Wars.
Okay.
So the first one is the Rima trade route. And the second one is the Perlimian trade route, the one that I always have trouble pronouncing. Mm-hmm. And the third one is the Hydian Way. The fourth is the Corellian Run. And the fifth one is the Corellian trade route.
I've heard a lot about the Hydian Way.
Yeah, the Hydian Way is like the longest hyperspace lane ever, because I think it goes from one half of the galaxy and all the way to the other half.
Route 66.
Basically, yeah. It's basically the Route 66 of Star Wars.
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of these, I haven't gotten into the strategic application because hyperspace lanes are super duper important.
Well, yeah.
Like, I mentioned briefly in the Trade Federation episode, like, all these major corporations, they want access, their own access to these hyperspace route. And anybody else that goes on it, they gotta pay a fine and everything.
That sounds like New York.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, you have to go through the tolls.
But in a military application, like, there's this quote I remember from Napoleon Bonaparte. Mm-hmm. And it's something along the lines of, amateurs discuss military tactics. Experts discuss logistics.
Makes sense.
Because, like, in numerous conflicts, you may have the largest fucking guns. You may have the best troopers in the galaxy, but you can't move them anywhere if you don't have access to hyperspace lanes.
Yeah, you gotta be smart about it. You can't be, like, it's dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta think.
Yeah. Like, Like in the Shock T episode, we talked briefly about a certain planet that the Separatists want to take hold of that had access to one of these big hyperspace lanes that goes directly to the core worlds. That is a strategic advantage. Like, there's an arc in the Clone Wars where, what was it? Tarkin and his Jedi general, who was Even Pell, you know, the little elf-eared guy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. They have coordinates to the Nexus route, which is basically a secret, super duper secret hyperspace lane that leads to the homeworlds of both the Republic and the Separatists.
Okay.
And if the Separatists get that, they obviously have a immediate backdoor to Coruscant and vice versa.
Yeah, that's not good. That could lead straight to an invasion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hyperspace routes are super duper important strategically in the galaxy. Like, if you recall in our first History of a Sith episode, go ahead and watch that, by the way.
That's a good
It's so
one.
good. It's so good. It's the origin of a Naga Sadal running away meme.
Yep.
But yeah, the main, like, if you recall, the only reason the Sith had access to the wider galaxy is because two Republic travelers just happened to stumble upon Korriban when they were, you know, charting hyperspace routes and everything, and then they unintentionally incurred invasion from the Sith and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's those hyperspace routes are super duper important in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yes, we talk more on that in the Sith episode. Go watch
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's so good. And speaking of important military shit, there's actually this lovely story going back to the Hydian Way again. There's a series of videos that surround a couple of years before the Great Galactic War, you know, the main conflict from SWTOR and everything. So Sith undercover agents got to stoke the prideful fire of the Mandalorians to go into war against the Republic again. And their strategy was to form a blockade in the Hydian Way.
Oh, okay.
And that simple act literally cut off the Republic supply line.
Oof.
Yep.
That's smart. Yeah, that's very smart.
Yeah, exactly. The only reason it was broken was due to the acts of a Maryland smuggler. I can't remember her name.
Hilo Viz!
There you go. Yep. I knew you wouldn't remember her.
Yep. She's a very minor character, but she gets to be a little bit bigger in SWTOR once you get past the expansions.
Yep. And the, what was it? The Eternal Empire expansion?
Yes.
Yep.
Once you get past Kotet and Kofta, you get her as a specialist for your alliance.
Yeah. So basically, the entire story behind her was she wanted to try and break this Mandalorian blockade, obviously for profit and everything. But
yeah, if it's blocked, she's not making money because she's a smuggler.
yeah, exactly. And she, along with the help of Republic reinforcements, were able to break that blockade, and she was hailed as a hero by the Republic.
Hell yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she is pretty cool.
She's in a very tumultuous relationship, a very love-hate relationship with Galt Renault.
Yep. That motherfucking Deveronian bastard.
Yes, still a bastard.
But yeah, as you could see numerous times, hyperspace lanes super duper important to the majority of the galaxy.
Nothing would function.
Yeah, exactly. And as much as hyperspace is this lovely form of transportation, and despite its importance, it still has its fair share of hazards, as I mentioned before.
Duh.
So let's see. Collisions and interference with ships are potentially fatal hazards. Well, the main concern is the gravitational pull of celestial bodies, which, as I mentioned before, are called mass shadows.
Yeah.
So, while every ship in the Star Wars galaxy is installed with a safety system, basically as a countermeasure, like if they're approaching a mass shadow. Basically, they're forced out of hyperspace into real space, furthest away from the celestial body in question.
That makes a lot of sense why the dreadnoughts and everything appear so far away.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to hit the fucking planet.
Yeah, exactly. Though even
and
with
have
these
to shuttle down to the planet.
Yeah. Though even with these safety measures, collisions with mass shadows can happen either by accident or intentionally.
Yeah, makes sense.
As we know with The Last Jedi and everything, that was, intentional.
Yep.
But anyway, the hyperdrive reactors of many capital ships could output enough power to rival or even eclipse stars.
Oh, wow.
So a huge oomph if they collide with a celestial body.
Yeah, that's a supernova.
Yeah, pretty much. Such a collision can prove devastating, especially to a planet.
Well, no shit.
Yeah, it is said that if such a collision did happen to a world, even if it has its planetary shields up, the mere fallout alone could kill millions.
Makes me question, why isn't it used as a war tactic? Aside from the sequels.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research. The Last Jedi. So that certain move is called the Holdo maneuver, which is obviously named after that admiral and everything.
Yep.
Funny enough, there are instances of that being in Legends too.
Wow.
So let me give you a certain example. So there was.
You almost said canon. But
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I meant Legends, not canon. One famous example was during the Clone Wars, when the Republic battle cruiser called Quaestar had its hyperdrive system damaged by a torpedo droid. Mm-hmm. And it inadvertently went into hyperspace toward the planet that they were fighting over, called Penmont.
That's not good.
And Penmont, just to give you a perspective, Penmont is basically a colony world of Aquarans, and it's a really super duper important manufacturing world.
Okay.
Like, it produces the Separatists' ships and everything. Mm-hmm. The Quasar, it devastated the planet to the point that its core was fractured completely.
Oh, shit.
So it just smashed into a million pieces.
Yep.
So yeah,
That's not good.
That is not good. Yeah, imagine.
No bueno.
You find a Holdo ship doing that against a super Star Destroyer is bad. Yeah, it fucked up a planet.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And there have been there are several factions that also utilize a artificial form of mass shadows. Because, that's very fucking useful to stop ships and everything and blast them into oblivion.
Yeah.
So I remember the Old Republic, they managed to make a interdictor ship, which basically did that. But eventually the technology was lost, and both the Republic and the Separatists were trying to recreate it. They spent like millions of credits to get a hold of this technology. Mm-hmm. But by the time the Galactic Empire came around, they were able to get that technology.
Okay.
And the most famous example would be the gravity well projector, utilized by the Interdictor class Star Destroyer. Imagine a regular Star Destroyer, but has several domes on its hull and everything.
Okay.
Those are its gravity well generators. And basically, it basically prevents ships from going into hyperspace. And if they go into hyperspace, they're just forced out.
Oh, shit.
And Thrawn utilized that ship quite well.
Of course he did.
Yeah, it was that.
That's a good advantage.
It is a really great advantage, and it was those ships that prevented, cornered the New Republic Navy at the Battle of Belbrini.
That's a great move on Thrawn's part.
It is, but that didn't save him when he got assassinated by his own bodyguard.
Damn it.
But yeah, really big brain move. Though to a much lesser extent, pirates and other criminal organizations would use a much more primitive approach, if you will.
Okay.
So basically what they do, is they move basically asteroids or other small planetary bodies into the path of well-established hyperspace routes to basically force any ship that comes along to be forcibly grabbed out of hyperspace because, there's an asteroid in the way. We don't want to get destroyed.
That's funny. Do they, tow it over there?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's funny.
It's like the space version of putting logs or something in the middle of the road.
That's funny.
It is funny, but really
it's a
freaking
good
smart.
Tactic.
It is a really good tactic, yeah. I always find it kind of hilarious because as I was doing research, so in the very first movie, Han Solo is like telling Luke like the dangerous business of, doing hyperspace coordinates. Like, he always makes the big deal of if you're one fraction off, you'll find yourself near a star or in a black hole, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Which is hilarious to me because in the lore, it says that they have countermeasures to prevent that from happening.
That makes sense. That was probably added later on from when the movies were made.
That is probably true, but I like to imagine
It's a little contradiction.
Yeah, but I like to imagine that Han Solo, being the friggin' smuggler that he is, kind of disabled the safety system.
So that he could get for him.
So that he could get much closer, way past Imperial scanners and everything like that.
Smart,
but very dangerous.
Very stupid too.
Yeah, we'll eventually talk more about hyperdrives and all of that fun stuff. Take another shot. But yeah, let me go on to other hazards. Though hyperspace itself could also be greatly hazardous to your health.
That makes sense.
Like, if you put somebody in an airlock and send them in the middle of hyperspace, it's basically much more efficient than if you put them in the vacuum of space.
Oof.
I'm just
that doesn't sound nice.
No, it does not. I'm just imagining you're just yeeted into hyperspace and you're just surrounded by stars for eternity until you turn into dust or something.
Maybe. Or if you don't get torn apart by the velocity.
Yeah, exactly. You could survive in an escape pod in hyperspace, but if that escape pod doesn't have a hyperdrive, you're basically stuck there.
You're fucked.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that doesn't sound nice at all.
Oh no,
especially knowing what kind of creatures lurk in there.
The fucking Purrgil and everything. Yeah.
Yep. That could eat you.
Oh man, yeah. Being ejected into hyperspace is fate worse than death.
This is just a question. Maybe you'll answer it later on. But don't the Star Weirds reside in hyperspace?
I think so. Yeah. They do reside in hyperspace.
Yeah, you don't want to encounter one of those.
Yeah, those weird fuckers that just scream like a banshee into your
ear. They're terrifying. Imagine one approaching a stuck escape pod.
Just,
oh, you're fucked.
Especially if they're like a Force user, you'd be fucked.
Yep, majorly fucked.
But yeah, so, okay.
Is it a rumor that... it might just be a rumor.
Yeah.
But it was, that if you stared into hyperspace while you were, going in, you'd go blind.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm not sure about
all the characters do it, no matter if it's in a game or a movie. They do it anyway, and nothing happens.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the blind part. I know that there's a thing called hyperspace madness, where if you looked into the void long enough, eventually you'll go crazy. But I do remember a lore detail where the Imperials basically polarized all the viewing mirrors of their ship and everything.
Okay.
So they don't get affected, so to speak. But I do recall Darth Vader would look into hyperspace constantly, and he finds it relaxing.
Of course he does. He's so fucking unhinged.
And there's this other character. His name is Chrono. He's another Dark Jedi dude. Mm-hmm. But he describes looking into hyperspace as very soothing and calming.
I can see why.
Yeah.
I can see the sound being relaxing.
Yeah.
But looking into it, I don't know. Especially with all the stars going by, it's just it would give you a headache.
There's this motherfucking short I remember watching a while back that I'm not sure if it was promoting The Last Jedi or whatever, but so BB-8 was with Chewbacca in the cockpit of a Millennium Falcon, mm-hmm. and a Porg managed to get on there. And they were just, classic shenanigans, trying to give a Porg. They eventually give a Porg, and they go into hyperspace, and the Porg is looking at the void. He's like, ooh!
I gotta look at that short now.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a link later.
That's cute.
It is cute, but I'm all like, oh boy, he's going into hyperspace madness.
What would a simple little animal do with hyperspace madness?
I have no clue, man. It would be funny, though.
That would be funny.
But anyway, so we talked about this a little bit in the Chiss episode. So the reason
Watch that episode.
yeah, watch that episode as usual. So Chiss do have hyperdrives, but it's not as advanced as the main galaxy.
Yeah,
and
they still have to go to beacons.
yeah, every
And
once
they
in a
have children navigating them.
yeah, every once in a while though, those beacons would be useless because the unknown region is, well, it's unknown, it's unpredictable. There could be like a asteroid belt one day, and then there could be a black hole or something the other day.
Yeah.
It is, as I mentioned
It's
before,
unpredictable.
it is very unpredictable. It's basically like
Nothing
sailing.
about space is predictable.
No, the unknown regions is especially unpredictable. It's like the equivalent of sailing in the middle of a friggin' hurricane.
Yeah.
All the fucking time. And that's why
Yet the Chiss are able to do it.
merely because they have their Skywalkers, the Force using children and everything.
How lucky are they? Otherwise, they'd be fucked.
Oh, exactly. Like, Force users are an important commodity in Chiss society, and it's their number one secret.
Even though in Legends canon, no, in Legends, they are shunned.
Yeah.
They mention it in SWTOR.
Yeah,
in
I
the
remember that.
Traitor Among the Chiss.
But yeah, like, Skywalkers are so important because, they serve as navigators. They could be all like, oh, we're clear over here, we're clear over there, oh, there's an asteroid belt over there, don't go over there, we'll just go past it, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But let me see. I wouldn't say it's a hazard, so to speak. I thought it was a nice quirky detail that I remember. When ships exit hyperspace, there is a phenomenon called chronoradiation, which is a short but powerful burst of radiation caused when a ship transitions from hyperspace and into real space.
Is that like the kind of stretch thing that they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just thought it was a nice little detail because I'm not sure of when was the last time you saw Empire Strikes Back, but you remember that one scene where Vader was all like, Admiral Ozzel is a idiot or whatever.
I don't. It's been quite a long time since I've seen Empire Strikes Back.
Okay, so for context, so the Empire finds out about Echo Base, the rebel base on Hoth and everything.
Yes.
They go to Hoth, and the rebels are all like, oh shit, we got an entire Imperial fleet coming out of hyperspace. We gotta get ready and ready the troops and everything. And Darth Vader essentially executed the commanding officer of his personal vessel because Ozzel was... he's kind of an incompetent commander, let's just say. And Vader wanted to surprise attack the rebels, but Ozzel got the fleet way too close to Hoth.
Oh, dumbass.
Yeah, because he was all like, we need to go further back and slowly approach them.
Especially because Anakin is a master star pilot.
Oh, absolutely.
He would know.
Yeah. And that's one of the quirky details that I absolutely love, that it, gives a lore reason, because the radiation was detected by the rebels, and they were able to prepare for that.
That's smart.
Yeah, so I just think it's a little neat little explanation. Kind of like a radar detection system, but obviously you can't detect ships in orbit.
Yeah.
You would have to sense radiation and all that shit first.
Yup.
But anyway, is there anything else I want to talk about? Yeah, I think that's oh yeah, so when you're in hyperspace, you're not in reality. You're in a different plane of existence.
Yeah, it's a different plane of existence.
Yeah, and you might be wondering, if we're in a different plane of existence, how can people communicate to other planets while in hyperspace and everything? Each transceiver in the entirety of the galaxy have sub-like communications, which basically sends a radio wave into hyperspace into a certain ship or whatever.
Okay, so it's like basically a beacon in hyperspace.
Pretty much,
on the
yeah.
ship that can make any connection.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I think it's, I always love those little details that do the simplistic approach and everything.
Yeah, it's the very minute details of something so fucking big.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at Star Wars in general, you wouldn't think to focus on that little thing.
Yeah. Then there are other times where they kind of over-explain it, like with the malevolence, as I mentioned earlier. I don't remember exactly what the source was, but there's like an explanation, like they were able to communicate with, Count Dooku and everything because the ship is so large. It has a signature that is still in real space, like it has its own atmosphere, and I'm all like, that's over-explaining it a little bit because each ship can still communicate within hyperspace. I know it was a little over-explaining here and there.
Yeah.
But let me see. Is it? God damn it! Why can't I think of anything else? Oh yeah. No, so you remember that one episode where Ahsoka, Ayla Secura, and all the other clones get stranded on this world?
Oh yeah, with the lemurs.
Yeah, so you remember that they were in hyperspace because it got damaged and everything, and they were going directly into a star if they don't shut down the ship. I was just thinking to myself, like, why on earth wouldn't they just let the ship disengage automatically? But I assume it's basically damaged, and that's the reason why they want to shut it off and everything.
Yeah, the ship was pretty damaged.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I just think hyperspace is one of those unique concepts that you don't think too much about, but yet there's lore that explains
There's some very
shit.
deep lore. It's
Yeah.
deeper than I thought.
Deeper than you thought, yeah. I just think a concept like hyperspace and the entire importance behind hyperlanes is just so fascinating to me.
I could see why.
And I would love to dive into the origins of, hyperspace lanes and everything like that, because each important hyperlane that I mentioned earlier has a story behind it.
I'm sure it does.
Like the Hydian Way, it was named after this Duros explorer named Hydian.
Okay.
And it's really fascinating because there's like an entire opera that surrounds that event.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is so freaking fascinating.
Okay.
And of course, there's some minor ones like the Kessel Run, which you also see in the Han Solo movie.
I remember mentioning it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, so to make it a long story short, the Kessel Run is basically this legendary hyperspace lane where smugglers go into Kessel to get the spice and then come back. And I think it's like 28 parsecs long, and Han Solo always likes to brag, like, don't you know the Millennium Falcon? It's a ship that beat the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
Oh, so he did it in more than half the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a fast ship.
It is a very fast ship, and that's the entire plot relevance of Solo.
I gotta watch that movie again.
Yeah, it is. Hyperspace lanes in general are just so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all I have at the top of my head. With anything else? Oh yeah, another thing, the common misconception. Like, the general misconception is that you could only reach planets that are along a hyperspace lane, basically. And for planets that aren't even close to the hyperspace lane, you would have to exit out.
Like Tatooine.
Yeah, you would have to exit out of hyperspace and go the rest of the way in real space. And that's not the truth, honestly. You could still go into hyperspace. It's just, I wouldn't say it's longer, but compared to going into real space, it cuts your time by half, basically.
Okay.
Like, for example, Mandalore, it is near the Hydian Way, but it is, like, way to the side.
It's still way away.
Yeah, you could still reach Mandalore through hyperspace. Because if you would reach Mandalore in real space, it would take, like, a year or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you would not want that.
Yeah. No one would want that. That would suck.
Yeah. Also a nice little detail, the further you go into the galactic center of the galaxy, the more time it takes to get to those planets in the deep core and everything. Because as you know, in SWTOR, the deep core is basically a bunch of black holes packed in there.
Yes, it is.
Like, I remember a certain detail that even though Alderaan is much closer to Coruscant, the mere fact that it's near the deep core and there's like, black holes and shit, it's ironically much faster to travel to Alderaan from Tatooine.
Really?
Yeah, because there's less bullshit that you have to deal with.
Wow. You wouldn't think of that, like, looking at a galaxy map.
Yeah.
Because it's a long way away.
Yeah.
But, wow, that makes sense, I guess.
I mean, of course, it kind of depends on the ship, because each hyperdrive has a different class. Like, the lowest would be, so, it kind of, if there's like a, just to give you an idea, if there's a class 5 hyperdrive, it's kind of in the mid-range.
Okay.
But if it's like a class 11 hyperdrive, that's basically near the bottom of a barrel.
Okay.
But if you go up, like a class 1 hyperdrive, then that's a pretty fucking fast hyperdrive.
Makes sense.
Like, it's kind of ridiculous, too, because there are, like, named ships owned by main characters that are ludicrously fast. Like, the Millennium Falcon is a .5 class hyperdrive.
That's pretty good.
It is pretty good, yeah.
Anyway, is that everything?
I believe that is it. Do you have any lingering questions, Hannah?
Not really. I think I've had all my questions answered.
All right, that is always good to hear. But anyway, so that is our episode of Can Mayonnaise Kill a Jedi? Or in this case, how far can we go into hyperspace without succumbing to madness?
Or hitting a planet?
Where we just...
Yep.
But anyway, it was a lot of fun talking about hyperspace, but you want to guess what our next episode is going to be, Hannah?
Enlighten me.
So we were talking a little bit of hyperspace, and I decided it was just kind of a coin toss for me because I was kind of debating on what our next topic would be, but I finally landed on one that I think would be really interesting to talk about.
Hit me.
It's been a while since we did a race, and for our next episode, we will be exploring the big-headed pacifists themselves, the Biff.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
The Jizz Players.
The Jizz Players! Finally get to say that on the podcast.
Insert Jake's reaction to Jizz.
His reaction, wait, what?
Yes, literally, what the fuck?
That was so awesome the first time he heard it.
We're going to make so many jokes about that next episode.
But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, especially me blabbering on about hyperspace. It's a really fascinating topic to talk about. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. And in the meantime, may the force be with you. And this is the way, Hannah.
This is the way.
Adios.
Bye.